Hi guys, welcome back to another show. Firstly, look, apologies. I know the podcast haven't been that regular, always challenging this time of year for me. Summer's the busiest time of year. Obviously pre-season in June, working with a lot of pro players, Premier League players from the top leagues around the world in England, and also travelling a bit. And also in the summer, there's a lot of players visiting. But back on it, guys, and going to get regular podcasts coming to you. And just want to say as well, just quickly, obviously we talk about it a little bit in the podcast. Just want to tell you about the Virtual Academy, the Next Gen Club. It's the Virtual Academy on the My Personal Football Coach app. Really proud about this. Got some of the best player developers in world football contributing. Myself, I do technical. Also this month we've got Luc Stolker, ex-Ajax Academy Coach, doing a technical challenge. Glenn Hicks does some tactical stuff on there. We've got Charlie Quigley, who's the S&C coach at Southampton, obviously doing the movement and the physical stuff on there. Chris Robinson, who's the ex-scout at Chelsea, obviously been on the show, does tips how to get scouted. And Steve Sallis, mindset coach, one of the best in the world, has obviously worked for the English and the Scottish FA, does mindset challenges, and really excited about this coming month. Is doing live classroom sessions, age-appropriate classroom sessions with the players. So check it out, put the link in the description. It's only $9.99 a month if you're a player, but particularly if you're a parent as well, and you've got an aspiring pro player in the family, it's top drawer, so $9.99 a month. Like I said, no commitment, counts whenever you like, but there's so much content on there and bringing world-class coaching to the community. So like I said, you can download the My Personal Football Coach app, do it there, or you can follow the link in the bio. But without further ado, let's get into the show. So guys, welcome back to another player development podcast, coaching family special with my very good friend and special guest, as always, Glen Hicks. Glen, how you doing?
Very well, thanks, mate. Fresh back from Turkey, had the sun on me back, so I've avoided the rain, so I'm feeling good, mate.
Yeah, nice. And it's also, apologies to everybody, it's probably my fault that we haven't been as recording as much. Just summer's the busiest time of year, and me been manic, been away a few times to Marbella with some players, and summer's always busy. So we're back on though, and we're going to get some regular podcasts out. And thought it'd be a nice one to do today, Glenn. We chatted about it, wouldn't it be like a bit of a look back at the Euros, if you like. Look about some of that, look at some of the players, look at some of the things, and also like I think as well, it's always important to think about what are the trends in the game in terms of like the players coming through, and how does that affect the way we look at player development in our sessions. So so heading straight to the Euros. Any initial things you think about that, Glenn?
First thing, always, as we've been in youth development for a long time there, is it was really refreshing to see the young ones coming through, not just Lamine Yamal, but even Jamal Musiala and his cameo that he had. Our very own Kobbie Mainoo, I thought, was excellent, and myself was probably behaving like one on Twitter where I was like, come on, get Mainoo in the team, because I'd watched him closely for Manchester United, and he was just, if you can do it in an FA Cup final against Rodri and Manchester City, you can handle the Euros. And that was my biggest thing I enjoyed most, always watching the young kids come through and flourish. Some unexpected and some expected, but
me too. Yeah, absolutely. It wasn't like a sensational tournament, was it? In terms of really attacking football, some good games like Germany, Spain was a good game, but a lot of quite kind of boring, but like quite dour games, arduous.
Yeah.
But my main thing is obviously with Southgate going. I mean, listen, I was everyone's critical team selection and stuff, but I just think like what an amazing impact he's had on English football. I was lucky to meet him when I was at Spurs. We went up to did like a Premier League weekend at Liverpool. He came up and he was like, this is when he was 21's coach, really sort of getting involved, really to meet us, talk to me about, I know John and Chris doing a great job at Tottenham, and he had such an amazing impact. Excuse me. Not just on the first team, just not only the English football generally, but like the youth development, the England teams especially, in terms of how the English team played, really helped drive with Dan Ashworth, the England DNA in that project, really like bring us into. And for me as well, it was always like you look back to the previous coaches, particularly like nothing against Sam Allardyce or Roy Hodgson or anything like that, great managers. But I mean, in terms of finally getting England to play the modern game, a modern football, possession-based football, it was really sort of dragged us into football modernity, if you like. And also within the way the first team played, and with the way the youth teams played, the whole of England and stuff like that, I think that had an amazing impact. So I think we should thank him. And obviously, listen, the tournament didn't go as well. And obviously, like I say, it's easy for us to say, always easy for me to say as a youth, working with more in development, being like always looking, on being always looking on the positive side rather. We always want to play attacking football and stuff like that. But the fact he got us to so many later stages and stuff, so you've got to take your hat off to Southgate. But then, also then thinking about all those players that have come through, and frustrating that some of those English guys didn't stamp their authority on the world stage. Like, you think about your Bellinghams and your Declan Rice had amazing seasons. Foden to a lesser extent. You really wanted those guys to sort of step up and dominate that tournament, didn't you? And for whatever reason, it didn't quite click for those guys, which is interesting, isn't it?
I agree, mate, and I totally agree with what you said about Southgate. I think not just that, in terms of a leader, I don't think we've had many better leaders. I think his leadership qualities are exceptional. I think he's an absolute gentleman and dealt with so many things, whether it's the political stuff through COVID, stuff that surrounded Marcus Rashford. I just think he's been exceptional for our country, Saul, and I agree with you. I think he's taken us on. If we think where we were with all the moaning and groaning about England, I've thoroughly enjoyed watching England for the last 7 or 8 years. I didn't quite enjoy the Euros as much. What it felt like to me, Saul, is I think you hit it there. I don't think we've ever had a team with players that were at their peak for their clubs as much. You look at Bellingham, talking about the Ballon d'Or and what he'd done with Madrid. Phil Foden, Premier League Player of the Year. Cole Palmer, sensational, 20 goals in his first real big breakthrough season. You can go through the whole team and do that.
Harry Kane, how many goals scored in Germany?
Ever. So individually, I think you'd look at it and say, wow, we've got some of the most talented individuals. But I think that's where Spain won the tournament, though. So I think if you look as a team, they were the most highest functioning team. They were with some exceptional individuals, world-class individuals like Rodri. But, Morata on his day is not a better player than Harry Kane. But the way that guy led Spain, and they was the most highest functioning team, and I think they was playing as a team, and sometimes it felt like there was some square pegs in round holes, and we was trying to get just the best 11 in at times. I'm not criticising Southgate for that. I'm saying we're just trying to get the best 11 players in, and maybe that was to our detriment a little bit. But listen, we got to a final, but I think the best team won.
Yeah, Spain were the best footballing team in the tournament. Them and Germany, that game against Germany, those were the two teams you probably pick as the most exciting, attacking, forward-thinking teams. And you say like Spain. It's interesting. Would you say like who's got better players? Spain or England? You're looking at those the starting 11s, particularly before the tournament started. You know what I mean? Maybe you have to have a great knowledge of Spanish football, but they wouldn't. You'd be taking a lot of those England players, wouldn't you? You imagine over those Spanish players.
Yeah, you would, so. But I looked at it again. I really tried to look at, because I knew a bit about Luis de la Fuente because I'd watched some of the younger Euro stuff, but I obviously didn't know tons. But I've gone and looked and dug a little bit deeper. But then I think we had some of the better attacking players. But when you think about who they're playing with in their clubs, Saul, they had players that are catalysts, that are getting the best out of them. So, for example, Phil Foden's got Rodri behind him, or he's got Kovacic, who's exceptional, and he has been for Croatia for years now alongside Modric. And then you go to Real Madrid with Bellingham. He's got Camavinga, one of the best young and dynamic midfielders, and Toni Kroos in complete control. Wherever Bellingham went, Kroos would find him with his, do you know what I mean, radar-like passing. And I just think we had a bit of an imbalance, and I think it showed in the final. People thought when Rodri went off, Saul, I think they've still got an abundance of players. I'll give you a point here. Pau Torres, for me, last year, was one of the best centre-backs in the Premier League, in my opinion, for Aston Villa. I thought he was sensational at left-side centre-back for Villa. And people weren't talking about him enough, and they've got to the Champions League. Didn't even get in the squad. Pedro Porro for Spurs was exceptional at right-back, apart from his injuries. Didn't even get in the Spanish squad. Gavi and Pedri, so two of the best under-21s footballers in the whole of Europe. Didn't even play a part, really, in the squad. Gavi's got a long-term injury. Pedri got injured. So you think they've got all that to come back. They're only going to get stronger. And I think it's still in key areas, so Rodri come off at half-time. And Zubimendi, the Real Sociedad player, the central midfielder, came on, and he was just exceptional. So I think in certain key positions, they've got a higher calibre player for me.
Yeah, but then
better players, more intelligent.
You look at Declan Rice being one of the players of the season last year at Arsenal. In the midfield area, maybe playing as an 8, playing different, not playing as deep like Rodri, but then surely there's no reason why. Obviously, listen, who knows? Could be the pressure, could be the fatigue and stuff. Do you know what I mean? Or the way they're set up. There's a million different questions, but England's not really short in that area in theory, are they? They've got players like Rice. I suppose he's a different player to Rodri, obviously, but
Yeah, I think we lack that control though. So for me, Rice is a number 8, and I think with Arsenal, when they played in the bigger games, they sat Jorginho in there for a reason, so because he can control and dictate the game a lot better. And then Partey came in as well and done his bit. I think Declan's more of an energiser than a number 8, and he's exceptional.
Yeah, he's a box to box, isn't he? And he's played that. I mean, from a coach's perspective, from a coaching perspective, I thought it was interesting. Is that we just we struggle to play through midfield. we players struggle potentially with receiving back to pressure in the tight spaces to stay on the ball. That's what Spanish did much better than us. And then Menu was obviously different to that. He came in and changed that, didn't he? He's a lot more comfortable in that area. It's interesting to think they talked about square pegs and round holes, but I mean, the key assets of players who play that in that position, you've got to be comfortable receiving it with your back to pressure and turning. Do you know what I mean? And playing forward, haven't you? That's interesting. And I feel there's not enough players who can do that. I think it's interesting. You look at the Spain squad, you look at the English squad. More players in Spain are they're not valued, or they're assessed on what they can do on the ball. Do you know what I mean? Where a lot of English players are still assessed what they can do off the ball.
Running stats.
Do you know what I mean? It's still like high press, strong, which is not, this is okay, but then this still goes back to what we're doing in academy football here and the recruitment process. And we're going to have someone on recently came back on who's going to come, a recruitment guy, one of the best around. He's going to come and chat to him a bit more on that. But it's interesting, isn't it? Is that there's still that emphasis on right, what can they do without the ball, or what can't they do without the ball, rather than hang on, what can they do on the ball? It's interesting, isn't it? You look at all those Spanish players. Look at Rodri. Rodri was like, his 1v1 is unbelievable, by the way. Like on the ball, oh my god! Like his receiving, oh my god, it's just sensational, isn't it? It's just sensational. And it's like in terms of receiving under pressure, playing forward, not losing possession. I was watching that first half of that final, particular. I thought, wow, this guy. And then people always associate what he does off the ball, but on the ball, it's just so good. Linking the play and taking over and playing forward, playing side and stuff. But that's the difference, isn't it? Still in England, we're obsessed about what players can't do, when they haven't got the ball, instead of thinking, oh, these players are just, amazing on the ball. And I think that's a lot. I mean, there's still got this problem in academy football. I still say, people say, why didn't he get in? Why wasn't he signed? He can't get around the pitch. And that's fair enough to a certain extent. We've got a lot of players who can get around the pitch, but generally, sometimes when you get on the ball, there's massive limitations. I'm not talking about the England team here. Firstly, I'm talking about academy football in general. When you look at it in this country, I think still that's a potential issue. Are we looking too much what players can do? Are we worried too much what they can do without the ball, than thinking actually, no, what can they do on the ball?
Yeah, and I think the answer would be yes. So, and again, it's all about the vest and the stats. And I don't want to sound like I'm against it. I'm not archaic at all. But I am. When I watch Spain, we keep being. What I liked about Spain, so is if I'm totally honest, for the first time, because these things change. They go with 5 in midfield, 4 in midfield. They just went back to a conventional 4-3-3 with 2 exceptional wingers in the 1v1. They had young Yamal one side, and just as impressive, Nico Williams for me was absolutely exceptional. And he'll probably end up going to Barcelona, but they just had traditional wingers. They had a relationship on the outside, whether it was Jesus Navas or Dani Carvajal, worked that brilliantly with Yamal when he was going on the inside, coming out. And we've done a thing this month with the Next Gen Saul with Yamal where people will pick up on that. But just, they went back to traditional 4-3-3. They went to 4-3-3. That was very expansive. None of this, because this obsession with, again, pressing style with German stuff about leaving 4 or 5 under the ball. When they were scoring goals, they had 1.5 staying back. They had someone stand on the halfway line and then someone locking out the edge of the box. They was ultra aggressive. At times there was like 6 across the front line, and it was going back to the roots of what this Spanish culture has been about for the last 14 years and 16 years maybe, and it was really refreshing to see. Saul, and I think that there's another lad at Barcelona that didn't even get a squad. I just watched him in the Olympics yesterday. The young lad Pau Kabasi. What a player he is, by the way. Watch this young kid at Barcelona, so Pau Kabasi, how he didn't play, and then you've got him and Pau Torres, another left side centre backs. They just seem to have an abundance, and I think where they are still ahead of us and all nations is they know what they are, they know what they're doing, and it is real ingrained part of their culture. When I watch this Spain team playing, it would be like watching, not as good obviously because they're not Xavi, Iniesta and Busquets, but it's like watching that 2008 team in terms of the construct of the team.
But they're much more direct though, aren't they, than those guys?
Yeah, they don't overplay. Yeah,
they play forward quicker. You've got 2 out and out wide wingers, really quite old school, just 2 proper wide forward players going to get down the line, touch, and obviously when they're going to stretch the pitch and get beyond. Nico Williams and obviously they're coming in and stuff like that. So interesting. They're much more direct than that, aren't they? And this is like Morata, the striker. But yeah, I mean, sensational to watch. Really direct. Yeah, they've got a clear identity. Well, they just went for it, didn't they? It's interesting. Yeah. And I mean, we're going to talk about. I mean, you talk about the coach Fuentes. Is it Fuentes?
Luis de la Fuentes. Yeah.
Luis de la Fuentes. I mean, that's quite interesting because we had. We chatted earlier. I mean, we go on to like talk about Southgate. It's like who should replace Southgate, and we had to. It's like. I mean, listen. There's some great. If you're talking about the coaching pathway, I don't think you can go too much. I like Lee Carsley. Do you know what I mean? It's just like someone who's come through that let's say pathway. The England team, the 21s last year, was sensational where they played, unbelievable, brave on the ball. This is and that's hopefully then how you want to see the England team play. We have those sort of players, really positive, really attacking, dominating possession, those sort of things. So interesting, isn't it? Because obviously it's difficult because of personalities. I mean, obviously you got Potter and Eddie Howe, great candidates as well. But in terms of that coaching, interesting, isn't it? Like Fuentes did it with the Spanish. Or no, maybe Fuentes is a bit different because he's been a coach for many, many years. He has coached in the pro game, but he's gone through the ladders with the youth team, isn't he? And then gone into that. I mean, it's interesting.
But researching on him, so he's only had he was at Alaves and he got sacked after 11 games. He's only had 11 games in La Liga. He got sacked very, very quickly for Alaves. He's been at Bilbao and he's been at other clubs and stuff, but I just think since 2013 he's been in youth development. But the biggest thing he's got, and I think this is where Southgate was with England as well, where Southgate had gone through the 21s and stuff, he had a really good relationship with a lot of the players coming through at the time. And I think that helped him out early doors as well. And I think you can see that with Luis de la Fuentes. There's a lot of the players there that have either played in the under-19s with him quite a few years ago and now 26, 27, or in the 21s and the 23. So that relationship building and that trust as a coach, because he come out and he was really humble in his post-tournament conference as well. So when he spoke about, he just was getting the players to trust him. And he said, look, if you trust me, we'll be successful. And that was one of their biggest strengths as well, is the trust in each other and a coach. They had this real harmony and unity, which maybe some other teams didn't have. But that's why I would like England to go for Lee Carsley as well, because I'm past this whole unicorn manager thing. I'm past this whole go for Fabio Capello, go for Ancelotti, go. They're talking about Jurgen Klopp. I'm not. Right? I'm a proud Englishman. I really think we've got so much work to do. I'm saying this as a very proud Englishman and an English coach that I have my own aspirations and ambitions myself, and we all do so. Is let's develop. The way Spain have an army of coaches flooding the Premier League, let's develop our own English coaches. Give Lee Carsley a chance. Give the young academy coaches and the young England under 16s, 18s coaches let them have the same aspirations to one day go through that pathway. And if you're talking about the style of football we play, so I agree with you, mate. I've watched the 21s and I think we're exceptional. I think there are some really good young players. The lad that Spurs have just bought, Archie Gray, and we know a lot of players coming through academy football right there. There's a really good generation coming through. I just see some of the Spurs stuff. With Mikey Moore, Tyrese, all these young kids getting a chance. I know there's good ones at Arsenal all over the country. We have got these kids coming through, I really do believe. And if Lee Carsley's identity is what he's done with the 21s, is there a better candidate? I personally would say no. Looking at face value at everyone, I don't think there's a better candidate to take the baton on the next 2 to 4 years. And we've got to get over this obsession of a unicorn manager and the big names, because I think Southgate...
Yeah, and also like personalities.
Southgate, but he's done a great job. He's done a great job at taking us up another level.
Sensational. Yeah, interesting. I mean, obviously, that's John McDermott's one for him to give him some sleepless nights about, I'm sure. But exciting times. Okay, moving on then. Let's think about then some of the players then up and coming. You mentioned a few there. Who are some of the players? I mean, talk about the teams as well. Teams and what the teams and players that excited you in that tournament.
I like the look of Portugal in bits. They was all quite disappointing, to be honest with you. So I did like the look of Portugal at times. What's team? Like some of the squads, by the way, like France, Portugal, Spain, England. Some unbelievable players in there, right?
Yeah, well, Portugal had a 1-11. They had two teams. I think if you put out their 2-11s, their starting 11s, I thought they had a sensational squad, and pound for pound, probably the most balanced. When you look at their defenders like Ruben Diaz, you would have said before the tournament, I know Mark Gahey was sensational, and England's defence never turned out to be their Achilles heel. They was very, very good, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
But pound for pound, for the level of players out, I thought them and France were quite disappointing. I quite enjoyed the France-Spain game, especially the first 25 minutes. It was like, wow, hello, this is like a proper game of football here for the first time. But outside of that, so I was really impressed with the so-called, again, this is a bit snobbery, lesser nations. I really enjoyed watching Georgia. I loved watching the front three of Georgia, Kavica Kvaratskhelia that plays for Napoli. I'd love to see him in the Premier League, Galtadze, is it? Who's the one who got 3 goals for him? But the whole front three were really exciting,
and they went for it as well, didn't they?
Yeah, Switzerland as well was another one with Xhaka, who's had a great season for Leverkusen. I enjoyed watching them in some of the highlights. I never watched their full games, but I like the look of them. But yeah, some of the bigger nations, like Portugal, I think they just, I don't know. I weren't that enthralled. I weren't that entertained. I think there's a lack of mavericks. I know we've had this conversation so many times. There's a lack of Mavericks. There's a lack of number 10s. There was definitely a lack of proper world-class goal scorers like the Harry Kanes and Lewandowskis that didn't perform.
Yeah.
Well, Harry Kane didn't perform. But
Portugal almost had like a whole squad of 10s, didn't they? But just they couldn't sort of gel. I mean, they got so many attacking midfield forward players, didn't they? Just whether they interesting. So what about then players that coming through? You mentioned Jamal Musiala, obviously early. Anyone else really impressed you?
Musiala was good. I'm trying to think of who might have been some of the surprise packages. I really like Kobbie Mainoo, so I just think I really like Kobbie Mainoo. I don't want to sound like I'm being biased towards England, but I just think he's a really good footballer. Like I said, I've watched him a lot for Manchester United, and one thing that the likes of Kobbie Mainoo and that should do is you watch how quick. It's 9 months it's been since he made his Manchester United debut. 9 months, and he was playing in a European Championship final. And I think the biggest thing that's impressed me about all the young ones that I've seen, though, Saul, is, and again, I think other nations might do this a little bit better, because I really like the kid Adam Wharton as well. So the Palace player. I think he would have been that player when you watch him play for Palace this season, especially the last 15 games under their new manager. He is that player that can take it on the half turn, can take it with a player at his
dictate
back
play.
He can really cut open teams. He was the catalyst that gets it. Him and Hughes were the catalyst that gets it through to Eze and Mateta and them amazing players and Elise, who's now got his big move to Bayern. We have got them, but next step is, can Carsley chuck him in a little bit more? Let's really go. Got
to be brave. I mean, he talked about Carsley earlier when he, like we said it earlier before we came on here, playing Angel Gomez and as a holding midfielder, as a deep line playmaker, just sensational. So use that word again, unbelievable. It's so that's what you need. You need ball players in the middle of the park, don't you? And I think too much. We've like I say, it's just we've gone for players who are really good off it, or pressing, that sort of thing. It was just there's no reason why our players shouldn't dominate possession against any team now. We've got the players to do that. You've just got to be brave and say, right, let's go up and just try and get at it. Try and dominate the ball. I know that's a frustrating thing sometimes to think, why, when Wharton and Mainoo, we've got these players to do it. They do it from their clubs. We should be able to go up against anybody. We shouldn't fear anybody in that position.
And it was a big change, still, because there were 12 or 13 players where it was their first tournament. I think, Southgate was getting bashed over the head for sticking with the old guard. Henderson went out. He was brave, and he left the likes of Rashford and Grealish out. And to be fair, they hadn't been in major form, but he put in 12 or 13 debutants in a squad. So again, there is progress, but it's like, again, this next step is, like, Spain don't talk about putting 16-year-olds in. They just chuck Musiala in at 16 because they know how good he is. Lamine Yamal, sorry, not Musiala. But the same with Musiala for Germany. Like, if they're good enough, really go for it. Just chuck them in. Like Mainoo, I knew Mainoo was good enough. Why? Because he has been unbelievable for Manchester United. And like I say, man of the match on his England debut, man of the match in the FA Cup final, and Man United were exceptional. It was one of the best performances I've seen a Man United team put in against the best team in the world the last 6-7 years in Manchester City. Yeah. So like I say, if he can cope with that, he has the temperament. And that's the biggest thing I think about the young ones I've seen, Saul, is the temperament of these young kids. And more importantly than that, I remember when we grew up and we watched David Beckham, people joked about David Beckham at 21 in these interviews. These young kids are so articulate. What's going on at these academies and the way they speak, not just Jude Bellingham, but you listen to Kobbie Mainoo at 18, 19, you listen to Lamine Yamal in their interviews, they're so mature, Saul. They have a level of maturity where you can see the education they're getting at their academies, I think, is first class, because they're speaking with complete and utter intelligence and clarity about the game of football and about what the game plan was. And there was one moment in the final, Saul, where Lamine Yamal put his hands like this, saying, like, calm down, guys, calm down. We're going too fast. Let's get a bit more control. And you're thinking, this kid's 16 at the time, well, just turned 17. And that's the biggest thing I've taken from the young ones, is their temperament and their mentality. I think some of them are a different breed. I really do.
More about then thinking about lessons for coaches. Then what can we learn? What can we do better? Does this affect what we're doing in our coaching program?
Trust is a big thing, isn't it? Because especially the more you come away from professional football, especially when you're trying to get young kids into non-league football or lower league football, it probably gets even worse, if I'm honest. They just don't get given a chance. There is this real, or not as much. I don't want to be generalising too much here, but I just think we've got to trust young people more. They very, very rarely let you down. They want to impress you so much. I very rarely see a young player let you down, and I'm excited for some of the Premier League clubs in pre-season. I like watching the games now and seeing what opportunity kids are going to be given. And like I say, I can speak about Tottenham. I know a lot of them are doing quite well on tour out in Malay, in Asia right now, and they're going to Korea. They've been in Japan. I know it'll be the same at Arsenal. And it's like, yeah, let's just see more young kids given a chance to break into the Premier League, and they won't let you down. And I would say as well, the biggest thing is I know we say this all the time, but work through the mistakes as well. They're going to make mistakes, because this whole thing about, well, if you're a 28-year-old and you make mistakes, or you're 18, if they're the same mistakes, they're the same mistakes. But actually, the 18-year-old's making them through a little bit of ignorance and naivety, but the 28-year-old's probably making them through bad habits if he's still got it, or lack of discipline or something. There's something else. There's another reason. So I think that you can be a bit more forgiving with the young talent as well, or we should be as coaches.
Yeah, and I think as well, just looking at the technical assets of the players, Spanish teams, maybe it's obvious, we said it before, but all very comfortable in possession of the ball, all willing to have the ball under pressure, with the back pressure in the back or with the side, whatever, willing to have it, and then they can try to turn and play forward as well. So like I was saying, go back to Rodri, again, just so good in possession and winning and moving it and, playing forward. So I still think it's one of the key areas. We don't spend enough time on it individually. Players like, you look at someone, typical, profile of an English midfielder, over the last 10, 20 years. Very powerful, good runner, box to box, that sort of thing. But how much time are we actually assessing that? How good they are actually to play with the ball under pressure? Can they receive it? Can they play underloaded, and keep the ball as well? Those things. So making sure that players are more rounded technically, and looking at actually, good. Yeah, we want players who can dominate off the ball and physically, outrun players, but we need them to do that on the ball as well. That's the key, isn't it? That's a massive thing. You can't have players coming through your whole system, and actually, and what they're known for best is what they're doing off the ball. I don't understand that. Do you know what I mean? That's got to marry up. That's what all the Spanish boys have, isn't they? They can do that. They do the work off it, but on the ball, they're really, really good. They're really efficient. They're not losing possession. They're comfortable under pressure. They're comfortable with the pressure, wherever it is. So I think that's really interesting as well, and that's something we can still do better here. It comes back to not only then in terms of identification, but what the coaching programs we're doing here, whether it's grassroots or academy football, lots of 1v1 work, but what sort of 1v1 work we do, and understand it, and when they're getting older, make it a bit more position specific. Make that force players into that, saying if a player's coming through who I think is really top talent and he struggles to receive it with his back to pressure, and then I'm working on that all the time. To try and do that, obviously working on the strengths, but not, I'm not going to let that player come through without at least having a real good crack at, making sure that he or she is really, sufficient in that area.
Yeah, no, definitely, mate. And I think we've all got our default modes as well, and I sometimes still believe that culturally in England, maybe our default mode is to go a little bit more pragmatic, shore things up a little bit. We take the lead, we shore it up. Why? Take the lead, go for another goal. Take the lead, re-energise the front three, like I see some of the most progressive teams do. Re-energise the number 10, one out, one in. Why has it got to be take the lead and hold on to this? Why? I like the best teams, I don't see them do that. I don't see Brazil do that. I don't see Argentina with Messi do that. I definitely don't see Spain do that. So sometimes there's default modes as well, and some things that are just ingrained in us. And again, maybe that's a sign of our culture. Spain's default mode has become, no, just take the ball. Take the ball, guys. You must take the ball. You don't take the ball, you're off the pitch. And
take the ball, pass the ball, as they say. That film says.
Yeah, and there's no one that shies away from it. Another thing as well, so is I think we've got to be careful with an excuse culture still, and I think it comes from us fans as well, or the fans. Spain's first two choice left backs, and if you chuck Grimaldo in there as well, Saul, the guy for Bayer Leverkusen who's been unbelievable, him and Frimpong, the two wing backs, unbelievable season, 15 assists, 12 goals, whatever it is. They was meant to be ahead of Cucurella, but again, Cucurella weren't this fanciful name, and people are criticising maybe because of his hair, the same stuff David Luiz got. What a tournament the guy had, and let's not forget he assisted the goal that won him the tournament. It's not the unicorn, but I thought he was outstanding. He was that 7 or 8 out of 10 player where defensively everything he was asked he got right. He was up the pitch giving them the width, and he was supporting. He didn't need to do much in terms of attacking because Nico Williams just terrorised every single fullback that he had, and he almost stayed away. But the key moment comes and he scores. So could they have had ready-made excuses like we didn't have Luke Shaw? Well, they didn't have three fullbacks. He was their third choice fighting it out with Grimaldo at fullback. And like I said about Pedri and Gavi, if we would have lost two midfielders, would we have whinged, or would they have just got on with it like they did and they put Zubimendi in? They've got. Do you know what I mean? Find the solution. Don't look at the problem and don't make excuses. I think maybe there's something there that gets you over the edge in winning tournaments as well. So I think they always find the solution and the best thing to do.
You were very close, penalty shootout away from winning the Euros the last time. So not a million miles away. But I think it's interesting you talk about culturally as well. I think it's we're only a generation away of when English football was literally crash bang wallop, stick it in the mixer, stick it in the channels, run after it. Celebrating players who are doing diving headers to clear the ball out and stuff like that. We're not too far away from that culture. We're still elements of that, so we still do have that. And then we love English football for that. It's very physical. It's very intense, industrious, but you need that guy on panache as well. We do have that in the Premier League. What I'm saying is that we want our players to be more associated with that now as well. Like say, look at Spanish players. They get the ball, they don't give it away. That's the asset you want them to have. So you want that intensity and that physical quality, but also that quality on the ball. Your players are known as that. They're just unbelievable on the ball as well. I think that's where you got to try and marry it up maybe.
And again, that default mode, Saul, there was a few games, especially in the group stages, where Jordan Pickford, I was calling him Jordan Kickford. He was kicking it too much, and it was frustrating. It was frustrating to see when you've got John Stones on your left hand side there, or your right, and you've got Gahey who can play. These guys can play. They can. Yeah. Give it to him. Let's play. Walker's at Manchester City. All right, it's not his strength. He's not as good on the ball as Trent, but he can play. He does it for Manchester City. So, again, that default mode, we've got to really keep fighting against that and not go back, because as quick as we can build it, we know how quickly things can change, and if we get the wrong manager in, it can change quite drastically. So we have gone forward, especially the penalty shootouts. Brilliant. No more of this rubbish nonsense talk about it's a lottery. No, it's not a lottery.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's about mentality. It's about repetition. It's about exceptional technique, and that penalty
control.
Shootout, control, managing your nerve, blowing your cheeks out like Ronaldo does. Whatever the process you go through, and now we look good in penalty shootouts. I back us to win penalty shootouts, whereas before you'd be hiding behind the sofa and thinking, oh, here we go again. So there's been so many things like the penalties. We're this close, aren't we, mate? We sound like
exactly. We
are,
mate.
We're this close.
Listen, before we go, I just want to say, Glenn mentioned his Yamal tactical analysis you did on the Spain and Barcelona prodigy. That's part of the Virtual Academy. If you don't know, the My Personal Football Coach Virtual Academy. Glenn's doing tactical. We've got technical this month from an Ajax coach who's doing a juggling challenge. Scouting tips from Chris Robinson, ex-Chelsea scout. Got Charlie Quigley, Southampton S&Q specialist, doing a physical challenge. And also this month as well, we've got a special live mindset session, classroom session with Steve Sallis, a good friend of ours, and obviously the show, doing some live classrooms about mindset development, age-specific mindset development. So if you're interested in the Virtual Academy for players of all ages, parents and coaches as well, listen to some of the best practitioners in world football. I'm going to leave the link in the comment section in the bio. Check it out. It's only $9.99 a month. No commitment to that either, so check it out. But on that one there, Glenn, thanks very much. Good to be back, and obviously just wondering where your suntan is, mate. But I'm sure it must be the light or something.
It ran away when I got to the airport,
exactly.
So
but
cold.
thanks for joining me, and look, see. Hope I enjoyed the show, and we're back to being back for some regular content. So we'll see you soon. Cheers, guys.
Top man. Cheers, mate.